I'm Francesca Morgan from Awakened Soul. Thank you for joining us today. I am actually the founder of Awakened Soul, and Awakened Soul is actually a lifestyle company that helps elevate people through many different forms, such as through lifestyle choices, through consumerism, yoga, meditation, and many other healing modalities. So we regularly do live events, and today I just wanted to do an interview with my cousin Veronica Pedrosa.
Hiya. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming and joining today. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah. No, it's great to be here.
So Veronica was a journalist for over 30 years, right?
Right. Yeah. It marks 30 years this year. I started at ABS-CBN in May of 1990.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it like to be a journalist?
Well, I think there isn't a single day that there's no same day. Every day is different. You can have a kind of outline of what you plan to do the next day, what you want to try and achieve the next day. But whatever you plan is likely to go up in smoke because something or other happens, and and other priorities take over. So it's a very kind of adrenalized lifestyle.
And was it like a fulfilling kind of career?
Very much so. I don't regret any of it at all. There are lots of, as with anything, there are lots of different dimensions to it, different aspects. So in one sense, it is sort of fulfilling in terms of myself in the community. You feel like you're giving something back by informing the rest of the world about stories that often are hidden. Right. Or kept in the darkness. For whatever reason, people don't know about them. And those are very fulfilling stories to do. And also ones that are just vitally important. Mm-hmm. Natural disasters, conflict, these are the things that kind of go to the heart of the sort of pain of human existence, but also the places where the most terrific, hope-giving things can also happen. And then there's also, on the personal side, you feel as if you're doing something that's worthwhile. You feel as if you're doing something fulfilling. But on the other hand, there are other aspects of it, which is that, of course, you're worried about the company that you're working for, and your bosses and your editors, and you're always juggling all these different interests at the same time and trying to balance them all out and fulfill and make everybody happy, which is impossible. Right. It's actually impossible. You have to sort of make peace with yourself that someone's going to be pissed off no matter what you do.
I can imagine. Is it like a highly stressful kind of career, would you say?
Yes, but you get to a point where you don't even notice. There was a point at which I went for counselling because of various things that were going on, and I thought, and I think we'll get to that a bit later.
Okay.
But I remember talking to somebody, and they said, you've got to learn how to observe yourself, be mindful,
right,
and watch out for when you're anxious, notice when you're anxious. And I said, I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm never anxious. And then a day or so later, I remembered what they were saying, and then I suddenly realized I am anxious all the time, and that's what it was. There was a kind of constant watchfulness, right, about just that something could happen. I don't know when the next call is going to come, and that was kind of doubly that was kind of doubly so because my ex-husband was a cameraman. You remember, and he worked in conflict areas a lot. So he was traveling a lot of the time in places like Afghanistan or Iraq or all of the places that you've heard of that are war zones. Right. So I think there was a point in my life when I was just ridiculously vigilant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what would you do to kind of relieve yourself from that anxiousness?
Even back then, I was lucky enough to learn about yoga when I was pregnant with my first. Gabriel's now 21, so that would have been 22 years ago. that in the course I learned I was living in West London, and I found out about a prenatal yoga class, and it was just really a lovely, peaceful time to do calming, gentle exercise and just be with myself and my baby and other women who go through the same thing. And then I did baby massage with Gabriel when he was born. And eventually, a couple of years later, we moved to Hong Kong, and I found a fantastic Iyengar yoga studio there.
Wow.
So yoga is something that has really been there for me whenever I've needed it. And so it was really great to see when yoga started taking off here.
Right.
Because when I first came here, in the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s, people weren't really into it. And now it seems that there's been a real blossoming of awareness of yoga here in fitness and in kind of mindfulness mindset. Yeah. So that was very important to me. I like reading, watching movies. So those things. At the time, but I really had no time. I mean, it was crazy. So I would, have to silo time off for myself to say, okay, this is my yoga class, or this is my massage, or something like that. Yeah.
So I would actually like to ask you about your experience, because I know you're now recovered from cancer.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought if we could talk about that whole experience, like how did you, find out that you got cancer?
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't anything that I had thought about really. By the time I was living in KL,
Okay.
Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, working for Jazeera English, and I think what happened was that I was just going to have a checkup, and I think I was going to have the regular smear test, cervical, the cervical smear test, and then I thought, why not have a mammogram? Why not? Because I think I was in my late 30s, I wasn't 40 yet. The diagnosis it was 2011 first of all, so I was in KL, and then I went and had a mammogram, and I found they actually found 3 lesions, and they were precancerous, and I had them removed in Singapore, which is just across the way from KL where I was living. I just decided to go there because a friend of mine recommended this particular hospital in Singapore, and they said, wow, glad we caught it, let's biopsy. So they just took the lumps out, and then they looked at them and they said, you know what, these are precancerous lesions, which is kind of a warning sign, right?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we moved to Bangkok, and about a year later I had another mammogram, and again there was a lump, and this time it was, I think I had the mammogram, and then I had the ultrasound, and it was just, they decided to do a lumpectomy. They said it was possible to do a lumpectomy. So, a lot of people have the whole mastectomy.
Right.
Because the lump was kind of here and near the surface, it was really possible to do a lumpectomy. So they took that, and then they took 3 nodes from the hormone, in the hormone center here in the armpit.
Wow.
That's to find out whether it's spread. Okay, so that's why whenever you have these kind of surgeries to remove cancer growth, you'll tend to have that as well to see how far it's actually spread. Luckily, it had not spread to the nodules, and they took up quite a number of the guardian nodes out, as well as this little lump. So it was very, very early on that they caught it. And then I had really great doctors. This is in Bangkok at the Samativay Hospital in Sukhumvit, and they said, you don't have to have chemo, but given that I had the alarm the year before, do you know what I mean? That it seemed to be something that was persistent at the time. So I had so I chose to go for chemo.
Okay.
And I had radiation. After the chemo was over, I had the radiation, and then I was on hormone therapy as well for 5 years. And there are some people, because I had the kind of breast cancer, there are different kinds that are caused by different reasons, and mine was the kind that is fed by hormones. So I needed to go have hormone therapy in order to limit the amount of estrogen, progesterone that I was producing, because that was feeding the cancer, which meant an increased risk, 60% chance that I was going to go into early menopause. And I don't think I did actually. But anyway, it was all really a mess. You know, it was really like terrifically disruptive to my health and to my own sense of self at the time. So yeah, but I was lucky. Goodness, you know, there are other people that of course, you know, all women. It's so common now, breast cancer, that we all, I think, know people who've been through this. It's almost like a sort of middle-aged rite of passage, getting some kind of cancer nowadays, because it's, you know, it's I don't know, it's the way that we live or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, I do know people who've had it at a much later stage and who have not made it all the way. Yeah, yeah.
And how was that whole journey like? You know, trying to heal, to going through chemo, radiation. What was that?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest, what happened was that it was so kind of different from my own view of myself, right? I'd always seen myself as a coper, someone who managed, especially having gone through that career.
Right.
So it's like you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? In a natural disaster, you don't have like food or water or whatever, you know, or electricity, or you cope. You just cope. You just improvise and do what you have to do. So I was used to doing that kind of thing. But when it came to cancer, I was like, this is not. I've always thought of myself as somebody who could control things, who could stop things happening.
Right.
So this was a very important. So it took me years to sort of come to terms with the fact that, you know what, I am not this kind of all-powerful person, like I'm not in control of every single aspect of my life. And I sort of quite dislike, it was quite difficult for me to look back on that time for a while, because I didn't realize I was not self-conscious enough or mindful enough of how I was treating myself and the expectations that I was putting upon myself, I think. So what happened was, during the treatment, I was a bit tunnel visioned.
Okay.
You know,
you were still working at that time, or did you just stop work?
Yes. I'd gone freelance by then.
Okay.
So I was working, but nowhere, not full time.
Wow.
Yes. So so what happened was that I did the chemo. I had like 6 or 8 rounds of that. 6, I can't remember. And then the hair started falling out about 3 rounds in. And I just remember just thinking, I think everyone does it. You just roll with it. You just have to go with it. There's no, I mean, what else are you going to do?
Right.
Once you've decided that that's what's best for you, and you're going to go on this course of treatment, then you stick with it. And you just, you know, you just have to sort of kind of block out anything that might get in the way of that. Does that make sense? If you let yourself, I mean, maybe that's me being really controlling again, but maybe it was just being really sort of, you know, it's like, I can't let myself, you know, deviate. I must not be too scared. I must not be too nervous. You know what I mean? It's just like, I have to trust doctors. I have to, you know. So it was really only when I came out the other side that I was able to take a big breath and think, what was that? So that's why when you asked me to go on this, I thought, you know, surviving versus living. Right? Yeah. Because there was a big gap between thinking, okay, I'm going to beat this life-threatening disease, even though it's an early stage, you can't help always being conscious that it is a life-threatening thing. If you let it just, you know, get away with you, you know, it will eventually kill you, right? And that is, you know, it changes your perspective on life, right? And living, rather than surviving, takes on a bigger significance, I would say.
In hindsight, would you say that the treatment that you did, like the way that you handled the treatment for your cancer, would you have done it again that way?
Yes. I mean, I know that a lot of people go for more natural methods. Like, I've got friends who really swear by vitamin C, for example, supplements, like really high dosage vitamin C and fruits and vegetables and things like that. But I really didn't want to take any chances, given that I had really young children at the time. Yeah. So my oldest was So my oldest was 12, 13. My youngest was 8, 9. They needed me, and my husband was traveling a lot, as I say, he was traveling a lot. So I had built things up in such a way that I really didn't want to take too many chances.
Yeah.
I think that if I was doing it again, though, I would have taken it a lot slower. I just feel like when I think about the way that I lived my life back then, it was like in top gear.
Right.
Like everything was just like full on, everything, and I really enjoyed it. As I say, I don't regret any of it, but I think getting cancer, and I had mental health issues. I think possibly sort of to do with processing trauma,
Right.
and to do with
Trauma from getting cancer or from
all sorts of things,
Okay.
and then depression.
Okay.
That I think that what I've learned is it's much better to be kind to yourself. I think to be kind to yourself. I think there was a point at which I sort of felt the pressure to be very successful, and I was quite ambitious.
Right.
And there were all these different sort of pressures on me at the
Right.
time, but maybe I could not have known that until I got to that point of to have gotten to being quite successful in my career, and then getting ill, and it was
Right.
just like, hello, wake up to yourself. Your thing is called awakened soul,
Yes.
but I think that it's when you say awakened, I think it's a consciousness, right?
Right.
Of wait a minute, hello, like that advice that I got about self-observation, about knowing yourself. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know, what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? It was like I was in a machine. I got to a point where I wasn't thinking about what I was doing in a properly paced way. Do you know what I mean? Something where I was really thinking and digesting how to live, the choices that I was making, and the repercussions on myself as well as for everyone else.
So, what really helped you through that time? Like to go through,
Yeah, so the tougher bit was after the treatment. In a way, the treatment, it was just like, once that's over, it's like, what I was saying earlier, it's like, okay, what was that? How did all that mean? And actually, a lot of things happened to me at the same time. So I had the cancer diagnosis. I split up from my husband, and my job changed as well. My job got moved. I was effectively made redundant in the sense that the job was no longer there in Kuala Lumpur where I had been based.
Yeah.
So we moved to Bangkok, and I was freelance, but I didn't have a sort of regular job anymore.
Yeah.
I was offered another job as a reporter, but I wasn't. But I was in the middle of a contract as a presenter. So there were all these kind of work things to juggle, there were health things to juggle, there were personal things to juggle. So it was like hitting an enormous wall. And I did have a recurring dream at the time where I couldn't, that thing when you're falling asleep and you're like, like that, your head sort of, and it would be literally like that, except that thing when you would wake up, inside my head, inside my subconscious, it was literally wall. I was hitting my head hard against a wall,
Right.
and it hurt in my dream, and I would wake up. Yeah, it was really weird, but it was so sort of great metaphor, right? Your subconscious comes up with great metaphors for where you're getting in life.
Right.
So I've reshaped everything slowly, and it's taken me for ages to sort of rejig everything. To be kinder to myself and to reprioritize, and I'm still learning and trying to kind of figure out what it is that is right for me and that is right in life. And I mean, I think that would be the advice that I would give, or the thing that I would like to share with people is that don't have any prejudgments about how significant things in life are going to hit you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to listen to yourself,
Yeah.
so that when something happens, and I think I denied my kind of grief or my sorrow when change happened. And it would only come out later. Do you see what I mean? And it came out in, who knows, some people believe that cancer is a result of stress, right? Or what, you know, all these different things, like, I don't know, toxicities and things going on in your life. Yeah, exactly. Some people think that, and I don't know. Yeah, and nobody knows, right? So what I would do is just say that, growing the capacity to listen to yourself and be sensitive to yourself and accepting how you feel is incredibly important. Because I think that for me, I felt a bit like, of course I can cope. You know, this is not going to make any difference in my life at all, and I'm going to fight it. Yeah. And actually, what in retrospect, what I can say is, and this is not necessarily for everyone, right, but I feel like I denied it, that what I needed was to be a bit slower about things. It's just like, hang on a second, let's not decide what I feel about it, and let myself feel it.
Exactly. Just accept it and surrender it.
But what is it? But first of all, even before I accept it, it's like, oh yes, true though, you have to be ready to accept whatever it is that comes. Right. And then accept it again. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Nice. Okay. So that was an important part of how I got through it. Yoga again. So yoga was one of the tools? I keep doing, yes.
I know you would attend some retreats, right? There's a few places you would go. And I remember you even told me you did Kundalini yoga before.
Yeah, yes. Well, I've got a really good friend who is a Kundalini teacher. And she was in KL at the same time that I was. Right. And she had lots of advice as well. What else? I did meditation was important. Well, actually, did I do that before or after I met your friend? The guy, what was his name?
Kirtana.
Okay. What year was that he was living here?
I think it was over 3 years ago.
So that was, it's about the same time. So in 2015, 2016, I went to go and do a Vipassana course.
Oh, wow.
So that was important.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is about meditation that I feel like a bit...
It's like a silent meditation,
yeah, it's 9 days of silence.
In Bangkok?
No, in England.
Oh, in England? Okay.
Yes. I should have done it in Bangkok. I've got a friend here who says it's much better. The food's way better in Thailand than it is in Europe. So really? I said, okay, yes, next time I'll do that. I don't know if there's a Vipassana course here. I've never tried to find it in the Philippines.
There is one.
Okay, cool.
One. So how was that like?
That was easier because of the yoga and because I've been meditating before. Okay. I would not recommend anyone go cold turkey, to be honest with you, because it can be extremely harrowing. Like, people sort of cry and stuff because you are really faced with yourself. Yeah. There's no one else to... I mean, you can talk to the teachers. There are certain hours when you can talk to them about how it's going. Right. But it's very rigorous. It's quite, it's very challenging stuff. But I was lucky enough in having tried to meditate for years in tandem with yoga. I guess, I had a pranayama practice, I had a yoga practice, but the meditation, I just wasn't getting there. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't get to a place where I could just sit with myself for any longer than a minute, really. And I didn't have the patience with myself to, that thing of bringing yourself back and bringing yourself back and bringing yourself back. Right. I would just give up after a bit of that. But I was lucky to finally find a teacher who said the right thing to me that made me understand it and get it. Right. And then I was able to, after that, meditate for a much longer time. So with the Vipassana, it ended up actually not being that bad. Wow. Yeah, to sitting for, it was 1.5 hours, 3 hours, every session.
Yeah, and that's the whole day, right?
Yeah.
And you're not talking?
So you start at 5 or 6, and then there's breakfast, and then there's lunch, and then you don't eat anymore. For the beginners you have a little snack at night. Yeah, like a biscuit or tea or something. I can't remember.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was okay. I much prefer doing my own meditation and doing my own self-observation. There was something a bit sort of mind-controlly about everybody just sitting and listening and no one saying anything. Yeah, as you know me, I'm quite an outspoken person.
Outspoken, yes.
Exactly. So I find it very difficult not saying, "Wait a minute, I don't agree with that." When they came out with the teaching, so I found that quite difficult. So I don't think. So I only did it once, and I don't think I would do it again, to be honest with you. But I really prefer looking for myself for things that suit me. And I think some people would say, "Oh, that's cherry picking," but I just think, you know, I believe in being, do you know what I mean, allowing yourself to pick what's right for you.
Right.
Because we're all so different that it's not fair to expect somebody to you know, everyone to believe the same thing. You know, or for the same thing to work. Our brains are all jigged differently because of our experiences in nature. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And well, yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that information and your experience. I know it's a very personal thing to talk about.
Do you know, I hadn't even posted a picture of me with, you know, without the hair until very recently.
Yeah.
I only just did that the other day, right? But it's because a friend of mine is going through, I've got quite a lot of friends going through this at the moment. I hadn't really realised it. And then someone posted something, and I realised, and I thought maybe it's time to share, you know, that this happened. You know, it wasn't that I was hiding it from anyone or anything like that. It was just more that I just didn't think it was almost like I didn't think it was interesting until I'd worked out what it was. Yeah. Does that make sense? I just felt like people, when you're going through the chemo or the treatment, it feels so boring because you're doing it all the time. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And really sympathetic, and you just think, "Oh, this is so boring. I can't. There's nothing else except for the treatment." So I don't want to go on and on about it and feel like because I didn't really particularly feel sorry for myself.
Right.
You know, it was a shock after, like I say, it was like processing shock, but I didn't feel sorry for myself in the sense that I never felt ill except for from the chemo after effects. No. I know, it was really, really lucky. It was never beyond stage 1 and a bit, maybe 1.5, maybe. Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get into remission?
Well, what they say is you keep on testing quite regularly, but you're clear once you hit 5 years after the treatment starts. I think that's how it works. Yeah. So I've been clear for 3 years, coming on for 3 years.
Wow.
So that's 5 years plus 3 years. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So you're clear after 5 years. Yeah. So that's clear after 3 years. So I've been clear for 3 years. Nice. Yeah. It's okay. I still have to watch it out. You know, I think there are some people who really, and I tend to believe them, that once you've got it, it tends to come back. You know, for a lot of people, it does tend to come back. So it's something that I have to be sort of vigilant about. But I feel at least, you know, like psychologically, personally, ready for it. Does that make sense? Like I know what it is in a completely sort of 360-degree way. That's not to say that I think I know everything, but I sort of know my way around the experience. Does that make sense?
Did you have to adjust some lifestyle changes? I mean, did you make some lifestyle changes to adjust?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I eat less meat, a lot less meat. Okay. And I have a much healthier diet, except recently I've been eating a lot of sugar, and I really blame it on menopause. And then, no, not really. I mean, just try and be a bit conscious. I'm quite careful about this coronavirus thing, because you are immunocompromised when you've got cancer, when you're doing the treatment for cancer. Yeah. So you have to be really quite. But I mean, obviously, I'm clear. Yes. But at the same time, it's in your head. Right. You know that you have to be. You know that you really don't. You know that your body's been through that, so you don't want to put yourself through it again. Yeah. And also, I think I sort of value what I do. You know, I sort of really feel like what I do and what I do for my family and things like that. That's to say that I really feel like what I've realised is that your relationships are the most important thing with yourself and with the people around you. all the things about like earning a lot of money or owning things and all of those things, they're really nice, right? And you know, there's a certain kind of level of comfort that we all have, but I do think that, you know, when you're really facing the end, and that, I'm not being grim about it at all, I'm being just matter of fact, it's important to know that you are at peace, you know, and surrounded by love, and you've got no regrets or jealousies or things like that going on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be, someone tells me you've got 2 weeks to live, right? I don't want to be, like a friend of mine was saying her father ended up calling everybody that he knew for the last 2 weeks of his life, apologizing because he felt so guilty for all the things that he'd done wrong. And I think that, you know, it's better to live your life in such a way that you can, you know, when it comes, and you don't know when it comes, right? Right. It's okay. The last minute is okay. You know, you know, my children know I love them. Yeah? My family know I love them. My friends, except for one at the moment, know I love them. But do you know what I mean? That's my ambition. That is the extent of my ambitions. And that's the priority. There are other things, obviously, that I want to do, but they're not as important as that. Right. Yeah. And I kind of write about it from time to time in my column in the Philippine Star.
That's a beautiful message. And with everything going on with the COVID and the coronavirus, and or anyone who's right now actually suffering any major illness, what could you like to share with them right now? Like for any viewers watching, like how to deal with what's currently going on with them. What's going on right now?
I mean, I guess that to a certain extent, it's the lesson that you learn from meditation, which is that act of observation. In meditation, you know how you concentrate on something, right? When you first get into it, like flame, if it's a visual thing that you're doing, or a mantra, or your breathing, or your senses, right? You start off with that to learn to focus your mind. And then it grows from that. What I would say is that ability of to be able to closely observe and distance yourself from something is incredibly valuable. Right. Do you see what I mean? Self-reflection. Because so that you don't you're not too closely identified with your illness. Do you see what I mean? Right. It's like, the thing is, if you let the illness take you over, then it can be overwhelming. And that's not good for you. You know, you want to have mental reserves. You want to have mental strength. Right. So if you can think about, if I can say, okay, like what I was saying about observing my anxiety. Right. Because I was too close to it. I didn't know that I was sad. I didn't know that I was anxious. I didn't know that I was angry. I was just surrendering to all of these feelings and just letting them carry me away. But with meditation, you create a distance. You can be a witness to yourself, right, and your own emotions. And that allows you a distance that gives you some feeling of control and allows you the space to accept where you are and be where you are, instead of, I wish I was, I don't think it's good for you to be always thinking, I wish I wasn't ill, I wish I wasn't, you know, I wasn't in the hospital, I wish I could go out, I wish I could do all of those things. Yes, okay, that's okay, you can accept those. If you can accept that and see where you are at the time, I think that is so much kind of better. And it allows you to grow and be at peace with yourself and to be kinder to yourself and to others. You know, and that space grows kind of the more you practice. I don't think you can just do it like, you can't just do it once. Right.
I think it's a daily practice that you have to kind of like sit with yourself. Like for me personally, I'm blessed. Like I've been just getting into an early sadhana practice, which is
you were saying you're waking up at 5 now.
5:30, 5:30 with this lovely group, and it's a like Kundalini yoga group.
Yeah.
And we get up at 5:30, and it really like totally helped me throughout this whole lockdown quarantine. Because if I didn't do that, I think I would have gone nuts. Because I'm not the type of person who would stay home.
Yeah.
I'm always a busy type of person. I like to meet
Doing
with
things.
friends.
Yeah.
I like to travel. I like to, so just being at home was really an issue for me.
Yeah.
So, and so what I was able to find that sense of freedom just through my daily practice, my meditation, having that quiet time before anybody gets up, before my son who's 5 years old and my husband, and I had a house full of my whole family. So I was like, oh, I have this time, and I just take care of myself, and that made such a big difference for me also.
I think that that's exactly what that space is. I put a friend. Okay, one of the things that really helped me sort of progress in my meditation was somebody saying, it's like when you learn about photosynthesis when you're at primary school, right? You draw a little flower, and there's sunshine, and there's rain, and it's in the earth, and you're like, oh, that's so cute, that's photosynthesis. But later on, it progresses, and you can do a PhD about it, right? So I think it's a bit like that. Meditation is a bit like it's a learning process. You just really have to be patient with yourself and keep understanding that it's not going to happen quickly. So it took me at least 2 years before I got, it finally clicked, and then then you get there, and it's really helpful.
That was really thank you so much for joining us. Really, that was really nice to see you.
Yeah.
You look well. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you're here to visit the Philippines. How long are you going to be here for?
I'm here until mid-August, I hope. It depends on the whole COVID thing as well, of course. All right.
But thank you for coming and sharing your experience.
That's okay. I'm glad to be here. Please don't hesitate to get in touch through Awakened Soul or through my website, my webpage, on Facebook if you want to. And I'm happy to answer any questions there. Thank you.